This is my recipe for pita bread. I use only these three ingredients: milk, active dry yeast, and flour and water. Of course, I don't put salt, oil or sugar in it. Now it's important to use a scale. Why? Because any variation, even 20 milliliters, 20 grams, it changes the result quite a bit. Two things before I start. I eat this pita bread only warm after baking it, or I keep it in the freezer and I put it in the toaster right before eating it. When it's cold, it's not good. It's too dense and it's just, I don't like it. That's one thing. The second thing, I don't knead it by hand because the dough is fairly dry, it's fairly compact, dense. You need to use a good mixer, a stand mixer, and the one that I had it's 800 watts, a real one, Cuisinart, so not a Chinese one and not an inexpensive KitchenAid 350 watts is not going to work. At least 500 real watts. Be aware the Chinese usually multiply the actual wattage and put another number there. So let's just start. This I'll start first with dry active yeast. I use very little. A very small amount, however, it must be enough. If it's too little, it's not going to rise properly. Let's just try to put, I would say this is going to be the minimum. I'm not sure if you can guess correctly. So it's about the size of my fingernail. Active dry yeast, I did not use those fast dries or anything else. Let's just put a little bit more just for the sake of it, so us to be sure. This is just a new. Just quick a few words. I try to give you more information, maybe people are not aware. So this yeast has an expired date on the cover. Perhaps usually it's about 1 year. You should be able to keep it longer, slightly longer than 1 year, but always in the fridge. So now that I did open it, it goes right into the fridge. I do not freeze it. If you freeze yeast, be it dry or fresh, and I don't know with fresh here, you will see I'm doing only with dry. If you freeze yeast, it's going to take several days in the fridge to wake it up. So careful if you freeze it. In the fridge, it's okay. So right now I put it in there and I'm going to warm a bit of water. It's not long, so really just lukewarm. Just so the water is not cold, basically, that's all I need. Because too warm is going to kill the yeast. And then you have a problem. Let's try it a little bit more. I just don't want it to feel cool on my fingers. That's the test. And I don't put any kind of sugar. The yeast has enough. I believe with this recipe, so I just touch with my fingers. I don't want to feel warm, just slight extra than the skin temperature. So the volume of water is actually very dependent on room temperature. That's why you did see at the beginning of the video, I just set it on the side like this. You did see those variations with room temperature. It's really important. And this is going to be the milk part. I think the yeast does feed from the sugar, natural sugar. This is pure milk. So this is UHT milk. You find it's not refrigerated until you open. Then you need to put it in fridge. I use 325%. We are in Canada. I like the taste of this milk. Now, if you want to use 2%, or 1%. That means you are going to get less grease, less fat in the dough. So you will need to lower the amount of water. So if you switch from 325 to 2, remove 220 milliliters of water or so. Just adjust the amounts. And also I'm going to use a certain amount of milk. If you, maybe 200 milliliters. If you want to use only 100 milliliters of milk, of course you are going to replace with 100 of water. But also because it's going to be less fat, you need to actually replace it maybe with 70 milliliters of water. It's always a matter of adjusting these amounts. This dough, I find it, I think I've said it, very sensitive to the amount of liquid, water, flour. So even a variation of 20 milliliters, 20 grams, it's going to change. That's why I'm using that scale. I'm going to add water now. It is not a difficult bread or pita to make. I would say that the most difficult part is to manage the variation of room temperature. And this is just need for the scale to stabilize. This is a recipe that I did by myself. Basically, I started with 3 ingredients which I've seen on a video, but then I adjusted everything by myself. I'm going to warm it up. It's about 2 minutes, a little bit over 2 minutes in microwave. It has to be, I'll talk in a moment, so depends on the microwave power, you see. It has to be warm, not hot, not lukewarm. Why? Because it's going to warm up the flour temperature. So let's put the flour now. And by the way, speaking of yeast, just careful, if the yeast dies, your dough will not rise. So it's important not to have the yeast that is too old, and also not to heat up too much the dough with the liquid, for instance. And I just want to stress that for some reason the majority of videos that I did watch on internet, on YouTube, which many of them, yes, this is exactly what flour does. It's very tricky to to use flour, to bake with flour, to prepare with flour. It flies everywhere. It's very fine ground. So I was saying that I'm yet to see a video on YouTube that is mentioning temperatures, and to me that reminds me how difficult it was for me at the beginning to learn the parameters that affect the results of the dough, because I had variations of temperature, summer, winter, the room temperature, which also will impact, for instance, the surface. When you lay down the dough, you lay it in a bin or on the table. Well, the table surface is so important. It's going to change the dough surface. Even if the dough was warmer, if the table is cooler, it's going to change the dough consistency. And the same, the room temperature is going to change to affect the flour temperature. So all these parameters, you need to control them, and I can tell you they vary, and you need to adjust, to really consider them, to adjust the temperature of the water. And also one way to deal with room temperature variation is to adjust the amounts, not by much. Could be 20 millimeters of the liquid, could be more, it could be less, but It has to be done, otherwise the dough is going to become sometimes too sticky or too firm, too compacted if you want, dense, which is going to be harder to knead. Okay. So right now, let me just see if you see everything. You will see why I use this bin, and I have to mention one of the things I like to do is, so again, it is not hot to the touch. It's just slightly more than warm, but that's a temperature that will rise the temperature of the flour if the room is colder. Right now, I would say this is the average temperature between winter time and summertime that I have here. It's springtime. I like to drop it from above, and you'll see, and to spread it all around into my flour. And this will help with sort of a premix. You'll see what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something to mix it faster. And perhaps I like to clean everything right away. And perhaps you will compare this to, if you have a stand mixer, compare this to the time that a mixer takes to mix the dough, no matter what the tool you use. And by the way, my mixer has a twisted, sort of a twisted hook. It's not a C hook, which appears to be better perhaps. So I use this lid to cover it. This is just from a hardware store, like sort of storage bins or something. Just clean them nicely before. And by the way, just want to give you a tip. Even when you go buy Tupperware, maybe from Walmart, get a regular Tupperware and pass your finger in it. And if you see it's really slippery, the new ones in store, right? Slippery, like almost greasy, but it's not greasy. Those are some chemicals that the manufacturer add on the plastic when they put the plastic into the mold. Actually, it's the mold, the metallic mold, that will produce the plastic, which is sprayed with a chemical. And those chemicals are called also forever chemicals, are not really healthy and will stick to the surface of the plastic to help removing the plastic easier from the mold. Problem is, if you use maybe a Tupperware, has that coat of chemicals, yes, it's going to wear with time, but it's really difficult to remove it, and I prefer to remove it before I put food in it. One of the ways to do it is get into warm water just in your sink and get one of those sponges, wire steel sponges, you know, the kitchen ones, but it has to be the steel one, and just rub the surface until the surface is no longer slippery, until it kind of drags your fingers. That's when you clean the so many chemicals that we have in whatever packaging, food, and so on. Now I'm going to shake this, and this shake maybe is not obvious what's happening. I can give you maybe an idea without the lid, but I prefer having the lid. It's going to mix the water to flour, not totally, but you will see what will happen. Usually I keep the lid on it because it's going to jump everywhere. So what I'm going to do is just put back the lid and just remove the lid once in a while. And this also helps you not having to put flour dough on the table right away, so it's cleaner, right? So it starts to mix. It's not always going to mix this well. It depends on the flour. Myself, I'm using unbleached flour. And speaking about flours, not all flours have the same taste. I'm in Canada, and most of the flours, some I will feel have less taste, other have more taste. I would say usually unbleached ones from the better brands, maybe they have more taste, but are less easy to knead. Bleached ones, in my experience, are easier to knead, but have perhaps a little bit less taste, but that's really subjective at some point, I think. But also we have in Canada Robin Hood flour, which I guess is made from some sort of different wheat. It's sweeter for some reason. I have diabetes and I can tell you I react to that flour because of the sweetness. That's what it also tastes better. However, because of the sweetness, I can no longer eat it. And even this one with diabetes is not ideal, but I have another health problem, so I have no choice but to eat a lot of bread actually. But I eat also cabbage. So see what happens. It starts mixing together. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to help once it's inside the mixer. Because the mixer, if you use the hook, I don't think you can mix flour with water just with the hook. You need to use another attachment, but the mixer takes time. It takes time to mix these things. And to me, this is a few minutes. These movements are, you need to find them out basically. And also, like I said, not all flour will mix this well together. It's still wet in the center, dry on the sides. Let's try it one more time. Oh, I forgot, just doing this video. Usually I would add the yeast sooner, not right away, after mixing it a little bit, maybe 1 minute. Let's say now maybe it's with some delay. I don't want to put the yeast right on milk, so that's why I mix the milk first with the flour for 1 minute perhaps. Now this kind of rotation is going to flip sometimes the center that's wetter, otherwise I'm going to flip it like I will do now. Just flip it upside down because I want it to grab the drier pieces. And you may want to try each flour that you have available in your area and find if there's one that's easier to work, easier to knead, and maybe even better taste. And by the way, I'm not sure if you have one of those grinders to grind your own flour from the wet itself, the wet. I'm sorry. I don't think you can grind it this fine. These are industrial grinders, which it's so fine. That's why it flies everywhere. Okay, let's try to incorporate it a little bit more. At the same time, I'm going to clean it a little bit this way. And then it goes into the stand mixer. And I have to say that this recipe for about it took me about 2 years or more to sort of finally get a result that was acceptable to me. And during that time, it's very frustrating. It's very not disappointing, but it's a very long learning curve. And I say this also because if you watch YouTube videos from some chief, some known personality or something like this, you will see in the comment section most of the times top comments will say something like, I tried it and yesterday night and it was amazing. I did the same bread, same recipe. I guess those people who comment are really good, are very experienced, skilled at baking and making bread. But if you are a newbie, let's say it this way, newbie, do not ever imagine you are going to get results right away. It's a very difficult, actually, to my opinion, recipe to do bread, unless you have someone that knows by your side and explains every detail. That's why I put this many details, temperature and other things. So I think it's one of the most difficult recipes, despite the fact that once you know it's easy. I can describe it as easy. But until you know all the parameters that play with this, at least I did many mistakes, many mistakes. Not only mistakes, but what was more frustrating, because I have zero resources, zero person to ask, and it's impossible to ask online. And by the way, if you ask on forums, be aware that those people oftentimes know a lot of things and don't always think about explaining all details. So I was saying that there are many parameters that influence the result. Even the mixing, maybe it seems logical. I do it like this, maybe I'm saying, but I didn't start it like this, mixing it like this. So it's a learning curve, and even myself, it's impossible to give you exactly all the tiny details that change the result here. So everyone will have to learn by themselves at least a part. And I think I was saying at some point I did not have a stand mixer at first, so I did it by hand, and still today I don't really know how to knead it by hand. Obviously I did watch videos, but you see the dough is pretty firm. So my results, the pita bread, I did kneaded maybe 1 year by hand or so, and once I got the mixer, the stand mixer, the result was right away. The final result was better, clearly better. I mean, I will not go back to hand kneading unless I have no choice. And so yes, that's one of the things, because I think that's because the dough, it's just so firm. Maybe you can try do the same dough, add more water, more milk, or less flour, but it's going to be, for maybe less flour and more water, it's going to be quite sticky. And because I'm doing at least pita, you will see the baking part, it's difficult if it's sticky. It's too difficult. You have to spread it, and it's going to be too difficult with bread. With a loaf of bread, it's much easier to just grab like a ball, put it on something, throw it in the stove. But with pita, it's difficult when it's wet. That's why I keep this consistency. So yes, again, stand mixer, unfortunately, because it's consistent, you need to have a powerful one, a basic one. $150 KitchenAid, no, is not going to work with this. Don't try. Well, actually, go ahead and try. But so let's just go to the kneading part at this point. I just want to add that I did wash everything right away. When dough gets dry, it sticks on everything, including your hand. So wash on the spot. Don't delay, or your choice. From this point, I'm going to do a voiceover because the stand mixer is too loud. Notice the hook. I said it's a spiral one. In my opinion, these are about the best, but not necessarily the best ones. There is also old one which had another kind of twist with this flat end going kind of upwards. Maybe I didn't try those, but maybe those are even better. However, the C ones, if you see with C, those will need maybe if the dough is wet, quite wet or very wet, then it can spin easily and twist the dough, and you will see that's what happens. What must happen. The dough must be twisted. I'm talking about the kneading part. For now, it's going to be a mix part. I would say half. I'm going to do 2 steps here. I'm going to work the mixer for a few minutes to mix it better, not fully but better, and then after a few minutes it's going to start to knead it. That would be actually a pre-kneading basically. And then I'm going to stop the mixer, pause it, and you'll see the time of that pause is going to be between usually 1-2 hours, sometimes 3 hours if it's really cold in the room. And then only I'm going to start again, and it's going to be the actual kneading with the twisting on the dough. However, keep in mind, if the dough is dry like this one and dense, that twisting is not so easy to do, and only good hooks like this one, it's not really a hook, only these designs can twist this harder dough. The thing that you don't see perhaps on internet that often is, it's important to understand that a dough that's wetter, which is stretching much easier, it's much easier to knead no matter what the hook have, even with a C hook. But when the dough is firmer like this, it's more difficult to knead, and you need not only a more powerful machine, but also a better hook. I'm not saying it's going to do professional results. I guess one of those big industrial machines are going to do a better result, but this is what I have, and it's better than by hand. For this part I'm going to do a voiceover. Obviously the mixer is too loud, so I have a lot of information. It's up to you to listen my tips, or just to watch the video, or just to skip the video. It's up to you. Again, I'm starting with saying that this was a winter time dough. It's always stiffer, drier. In the beginning of the video I show how I adjust the amounts of liquid, flour, temperature of liquid, but also proofing or rising times. Obviously in summertime are going to be much shorter than winter time. One of the things that you may notice here, and by the way, I'm not sure if that I didn't mention it, that this is a powerful mixer. This is 800 real 800 watts. I'm saying real because Chinese, you buy $150, $100 Chinese mixers saying they are, who knows, 1000 watts or more. It turns out they are not even 200 watts, not to mention weakness of components. So this is a Cuisinart real 800 watts, and I can tell you it does struggle with this dough. And one of the things that you notice here is I do not lock. If you look at the left of the screen, bottom left corner, that's the top of the mixer, it's not locked in place. And the reason I'm doing this is, I would say, two reasons. First, one reason is this model, it's an older model, has an issue with the lock mechanism, which if you force, just like I do here, it will just kind of bend the metal and is no longer stay locked in place. But that's a secondary reason. The main reason is that if you notice, I'm sitting on the other side of the mixer. I'm sitting basically on a chair, and what you see here is my right hand. I overlap my right arm and I hold on the basket with my fingers. And if you look at the top of the mixer, I literally, I cannot say adjust it, but I just play with the height. And this way, what's happening here is the stand mixer, or any mixer basically, with these hooks are sort of a compromise. One of the things that they cannot do properly is to mix flour and water. That's also the reason I'm mixing it by hand. And by the way, careful if you don't do what I'm doing here. Just careful, because if you get your hand trapped between the bowl and the hook, it's going to crush your fingers. It's going to break your bones instantly. So careful with this. So I was saying that the hook is not optimized for everything, for every part. And this dough is a very, well, uneasy dough, if you want. It's a hard to mix dough, hard to knead.
So the position of the hook, it's very important, and I'm really playing with the up, down, and also sideways position, because the hook does have a circular rotation on top of its circular movement on top of its own rotation. Is that planetary thing. Careful again, don't put your hands like I do here. I should not do this and film it. So I already got hurt with this. You are better off to turn it off. So I was saying that moving the hook up and down, and also lifting it and inserting it when the tip is at a certain circular position, if you want. It helps me really just kind of, if you want, some way I would say this, personalize the kneading of the dough. I control it myself on top of the actual kneading with the hook. And by the way, this is not really a kneading here, it's more like a mixing at this point. It's the first step of the mixing with the mixer, stand mixer. So I cannot explain this more. I'm going to link you further away in the video a dough that's done in summertime, which is much softer, and you will see the difference in kneading with the same mixer. So it's really intended what I'm doing here, and it's just my opinion here. It does knead it much faster this way, the way I'm controlling it. If I will lock it down and I just let it spin the dough around, with this kind of hard dough, it's not going to make a better job for the same amount of time. With a softer dough, I think it's going to work much better if you lock it down. But with this dough, which is fairly dry, as you can tell, it's very different. So don't think that these hooks, call them hooks, are ideal. They are compromised, and they will work better in some area, less better in others. Okay, this is one of the things. The second thing is that, let me just try to remind exactly all the points that I want to say. Yes, you didn't see it in this video. These stand mixers, they force a lot, and one point in the video I let you hear the sound of the mixer at the moment when it was forcing more. And one of the reasons I also do this kind of lift the hook, if you want to keep it with my hand, is so I don't have it force too much. If you lock it in place, it's going to this lower very close to the bottom of the bowl, so it's going to force a lot. You will hear in the motor, like I said, in a few minutes you will hear the actual sound at the moment when it's forcing most. So it's also to save the motor. And one of the things that I, not just the motor, the bushing as well, because these are, some of the bushings are lubricating inside, you can call them bearings and gears, but others are not lubricated. It's really dry bushings. So yes, they have limitation, obviously. And one other thing that I do with this machine, and I recommend you, I have plenty enough time to talk while you watch the complete process. One of the things I do is I start the mixer first. I plug them into the, I never leave them plugged into the wall, never, because that has the capacitors in the circuitry always powered up, and I don't think it helps them last longer. So I always unplug it from the wall when I don't use it, even though it has sort of a clock on it and fancy. So before I start working on it, I plugged it into the wall without starting it. I leave it 1-2 minutes for the capacitors to recharge and stabilize. Then I start the mixer and just keep it like this in the air without forcing, without working with it. I let it spin at speed 1 for about 30 seconds. Then I turn to speed 2 and I let it spin for another 30 seconds without working on it, basically. And I did mention speed 2 is the maximum speed you want to use on this, because if you use for higher speeds, then especially in the moments where it's more, there is more stress on the machine, that forces on the motor much more. So 2 is the recommended speed for kneading, maximum speed. 1, I feel it doesn't do us a good job, not just a matter of time, but I feel like speed 1 for me just doesn't work as well as speed 2. So this is speed 2, what you see here. Actually, I did slow it down. You notice the same thing I do when I start working with it, I do when I finished working with it. I just lift it, I let it speed 2 for a couple of seconds, 30 seconds, then I lower it to speed 1 for another 30 seconds, actually some more on speed 1 after I finish working. And then when I stop it finally, I still let it unplug 1-2 minutes for the capacitors to stabilize. I don't want to shock the capacitor, and I recommend you do the same with your machine if you want to have it last longer. So perhaps you did, yes, it did change. So you did see when I put the plastic on it, that's the resting period, which I put at the beginning of the video. It's going to be about 1 hour to 3 hours, depends on the room temperature. That resting period helps getting the dough more soft. So it's going to help a lot with the kneading. And if you have a dough that's too stiff, just let it rest a few hours covered with plastic. I never use wet damp towels or something like this. It sticks to the towel, makes no sense to me. Just clean plastic, cover it, let it sit several hours. The dough is going to soften, so we can work it easier. Anyhow, this is the second part of the mixing, and at this moment there is the actual kneading happening because the dough has been mixed fully. Anyway, I was saying that before stopping, unplugging from the wall the machine, I will let it sit without running 1 to 3 minutes to have the capacitor stabilize. This is just technical part of all these machines. Yes, so this is the second mixing, proofing, and perhaps here you will see again, notice my hand on the right upper corner, and notice I'm lifting it. This is intentionally done. I lift it and I just penetrate with the hook at a specific location, and that just kind of makes me, I don't know, work some places of the dough that I prefer. I think it's better to work, or because one of the things that happens when you fully lower this dough, this hook, is that at some point it makes sort of a bubble of dough that doesn't get mixed, and so it's not ideal. That's why I'm working on it with this approach. I want to say something else. Well, yeah, when I remember things, I will let you know. So in a moment you are going to hear the motor when it's let's say forcing some more. I know there is another type of hook. Actually, there are 2 more types of hooks. One is the C hook, if you want, and people oftentimes say it doesn't really need, it doesn't, that doesn't work the dough properly. It kind of rotates the dough around the bowl, and I think it's true, but also it does depend a lot of how wet, how soft is your dough. That's what people never say on comments on Amazon or on YouTube. It's really important. Not all dough are the same density of firmness or dryness or wetness or softness. So again, this is one of the hooks that I think works better, but it's far from being ideal, right? We are not going to imagine these mixers are perfect. If you want ideal, go to look at the industrial machine, bread machine, dough machine. Those machines work the dough the right way. There is another type of hook which was on older, I don't remember the name, maybe Kenwood, older machines, which is slightly different shape than this one, especially in the bottom. It's like that end of the hook kind of bends and comes upwards a little bit. I don't know about that one, how well it works the dough. I don't know why is no longer used in modern machines. So that's one thing. At some point, no, not yet. I just want to say that for about 1-2 years before using this mixer, I did knead by hand, and I'm not good at kneading by hand. The way I did it is just fold it and so on. I just watched other videos basically, so nobody told me how to do it. But the moment when I switched to this mixer, the quality of the bread was just completely different. So kneading by hand, especially though that's not very soft, I don't think it's a good idea. I just don't think so. That's why I think it's a limitation. You need a mixer, and perhaps, you know, if you search on Amazon reviews, always search the negative ones first. There will be a moment right now, I think, when you'll hear the sound. So let's make some sound. I was talking about the reviews on Amazon. You have those stand mixers which are selling for maybe $150. You find them on Walmart. Oh, the shelves are full of this. They advertise something around 200 watts or so. If you are using a thick, hard dough like this one, completely forget those mixers. They are absolutely not going to work up to the task. It's just impossible for them. I would recommend a mixer that has, for a hard dough like this one, I would recommend a mixer that has at least a real, which means a good brand, not some Chinese weird name, at least 500 watts. If you rather have a very soft dough, which I'm going to show to you in a few minutes, an example, then perhaps a 300 watts mixer will be fairly good. But 200 watts, the inexpensive ones, I don't know, it's up to you to take a chance if you are using a very, very soft dough. Now, you will see in a moment, so this is about how much I will need this dough, which is colder dough, harder doughs. Notice the small spiral forming. Time wise, I would say it's about 5 to 10 minutes. That would be the kneading part, so the second mixing and kneading, not the first part. After the rest period of few hours, I would need it for mix and knead for about 5 to 10 minutes. Depends how soft it is, the temperature. And so when the dough is softer, and which we'll see in a moment an example, I do think that the bread it's much better, and it does also knead better. You will see an example. Unfortunately, in winter time, that's how I work, and that's the room temperature is pretty cold. I could do it softer, I could add more water, but also myself, just a personal taste, I don't really like to work on a very wet dough, especially when making pita. It's not. This is the end of kneading a stiffer dough, a drier dough. And once I finish, I just put it in that bin, and I cover it again with a piece of plastic, foil of plastic, clean one, and put it in with a cover and just let it rest. And this gives you an idea. I'm very sure this is not a good kneading, but because the dough is so stiff, I think that's pretty much the most I can extract from it. And I can tell you, I did also try kneading it a third time. I didn't see any difference. However, in summertime, when the dough is much softer, I can tell you that the bread stays softer when it's cold. When I started this video, I think I said that when the dough is stiff like this, when I finish making the bread, if I let it cool down, it's just hard to tear. It's not soft. I don't like eating it. That's why I put it in the freezer and then in the toaster just before, right before eating it. Basically, I eat it warm after. Otherwise, it's just is not pleasant to eat. It's too dry, or I don't know, too hard to bite in it or to chew it. However, in summertime, when the dough is much more soft and wet, if you want, the bread that I made out of that softer dough, the bread it's much better when it's getting cold. So when it cools down, the bread itself, the pita bread, it's much more easy to eat and pleasant to eat. It's not going, and I don't think it's going to be really soft like you find in stores or so. So this is a limitation. Obviously, this is not a store product, or if you're a professional product in any way. But as long as I heat it in the toaster, I don't toast it, I just heat it up in a toaster to be kind of a little bit crunchy. I like it, and just, you know, it's also pleasant to eat your own work, basically. So yes, softer dough will make a better bread, that's for sure. And the downside of the softer dough is that it's so hard to work with it. You need to put flour on it, and you need to be careful not to stretch it too much. So that's the downside. Everybody can adjust this recipe their own way to make it softer, for instance, and it's always possible. Just it's up to you to get you know, to work it the way it's easier for you and it's convenient for you. So this is just before the proofing part or rising part. Notice the dough is very, very thin at this point. It's like 1 inch thin, and you will see this winter dough, because it's proofed at very cold temperature. The coldest is, I know in Celsius may translate to Fahrenheit. Coldest I would prove it, it's 12 Celsius. The coldest, if it's lower than that, then it's not going to do anything. It's not going to rise correctly. But even if you will see it won't rise a lot. You will see the next day of this video, it's not going to rise a lot. It's going to be perhaps 2 to 3 inches thicker. But even so, the bread was still decent. Just my taste, the bread was still decent. So in winter time, it's not going to rise a lot. In summertime, it's going to be completely different. It's going to rise 5, 6, 7 times the thickness that you have in this moment. So this is a much softer dough. I filmed this recently. It starts being springtime. This is if you're on a summer dough, and this is the second part of the mixing with the proofing. And notice the spiral that it does. This is a good kneading, in my opinion, the best that this machine and dough and hook can do. And again, I'm not letting the hook all the way down. It's not locked. I still control it. This is just showing the hook one more time. So yes, this dough, which you see is much softer, gives better bread, also does knead much better visually, but also does rise much more because it's in much warmer temperature.
It's next day morning, 12 hours rising, and this is my cooking tray. I will put at the end of the video how to use a cast iron skillet on an electric stove round. So look at the end of the video, I will explain. I'm no longer using cast iron skillet because this is larger, wider, and also easier to handle, and I prefer this thing. It's something that is no longer produced today, so I got it from a thrift store. I'll show it in a moment, but first, this is the dough. I let it rise about 12 hours. Now keep in mind it's winter time. This room it's not really heated, so the temperature of the dough for rising has been the lowest I would use, and that's about 12 Celsius. 12 Celsius does not have it lift a lot, but you will see if you look underneath, perhaps in the camera, you see those big bubbles. It means it did proof correctly, even if in warmer days I will have it taller. So I would say at 20 Celsius or so, you should expect it to double in size. So usually when I put it in this bin, it's about, I would say, 1.5 inches tall. At 20 Celsius, after the correct time, it should double in size, in tallness if you want. Also, this happened to be one of the driest dough that I do. It was really dry because I didn't pay attention when I put flour. I put maybe 10 extra grams or 15 extra grams of flour. That small amount changes a lot. But also the room temperature. So when you pull the plastic, if it sticks when it's very wet, it's going to stick on the plastic. What I do, I just pull on the plastic and just scrub it. This is my, whatever you call this, I just scrub the dough. Now it doesn't stick because it's very dry, but wet dough will stick much more. And I would just lay the plastic like this with dough on it, and after maybe 1 hour the dough will fully dry and detach by itself from the plastic. So it's very easy to reuse it. I don't need to wash the plastic. Okay, so usually I would just portion it more or less. My window closed here. On this tray I would put 2 pieces at a time. On the cast iron skillet I would put just 1 slightly larger piece, but it's easier to use small pieces, small pitas. Large pitas is going to stretch in the middle and will just get too thin in the middle, and it's not uniform. Also, it's more difficult to handle, and also if it's too sticky, it's going to be even worse to handle. So that is one of the things that you need to pay attention. Let me just give you a few tips about the cooking tray. Again, it's a cooking tray, it's not a warming tray. There are 2 models, or there were 2 models of these appliances basically. One, it's a cooking and it's very powerful. It's high heat. You can cook a steak on it without any kind of problems. It's just like a plate if you want on a fast food restaurant. So this one I heat it to 350 Fahrenheit, and what's important is that I start it from cold and it heats up in about 5 minutes, but I leave it in total. I wait for it to stabilize the temperature about 15 minutes. For the cast iron skillet, I will wait for it to stabilize about 20 minutes, not sooner than that. If I put the bread, the dough, sooner than 15 minutes or 20 on cast iron skillet, it burns the surface of the dough and it doesn't bake it. So you really need to get the temperature stable. And actually I use it slightly lower than 350. Let me just show you perhaps one of the problems with this plate, the trays, is that once they warm up, they bend a little bit and starts being wobbly. That's why I use a little bit of a piece underneath. I'm not sure if you will see it properly, likely not. Let me just perhaps unplug it. You can also unplug it from here. It's hot, so I'm handling it carefully. I do not know if the camera will show properly because it's a shiny surface, but it says there 1500 watts and it's made in Canada. You can, I'm not sure about washing these things. I don't wash it, so actually this is the thermometer. This piece here is the what is measuring the temperature underneath the tray, and I prefer to plug it in first, turn it off, and then plug it into the wall just for the sake of it. Okay. Perhaps it's going to This I don't believe to be non-stick. Just it looks like this is sort of a, it's not aluminium, but it's sort of a light alloy. It's not too heavy. But what is most important, the same with the cast iron skillet, is to have the dough wrapped with flour. You can tell how I cut the dough. This I got it from, I cut it. I also have the metal one. The metal one I use to just scrub the table. It's easy for cleaning the table, but this way I don't need to scrub the table. This one I cut it from, I believe it's real, is that real orange? It's a bottle, like about 2 liters bottle. Perhaps it's real orange. It's orange juice, but just natural orange juice. It's a jug like this with a green cap, and it's from the sides. Notice these strips. It's very good. One of the things is that it may crack here at the ends. I would just chop it shorter, so you can reuse it many times. Very easy. It's rounded here, which helps, and it's very easy to keep it in hand. Very light, and it's not flat at the end. It's rounded, which I like better compared to metal ones. Metal ones I did use and didn't like them, except to scrub the table. So I'm going to use 2 pieces. I was saying about this cooking tray, 1400 watts. There are also warming trays which don't look like this one. Warming trays usually look like a plastic surface. Usually, sometimes it's kind of wood imitation. It doesn't look like a cooking surface per se. And those warming trays are usually, the power is about 150 watts or so. So it's about 10 times less power. And you cannot bake on those. It's really just to keep the food warm, a little warm. I believe you just bake the food on something else, on a stove or something like this. And if you want to like serve people at a table or a reception or anything like this, at that moment you put the warm food on those warming trays, and it keeps it relatively warm, but at no point you can bake on those. So, and also, if you look on eBay, most of these trays are going to be warming trays, not cooking trays. I didn't see actually one of those on eBay. Perhaps I've seen 1 or 2, but vast majority were warming trays. At this moment, let's see if I have a good view. Okay. So what I do with the dough, and by the way, it's quite cold. 12 Celsius is the very bottom limit I will accept to have it rise. The top limit I would say is 23 Celsius, 24 in summertime, warm days. More than that, it starts being too sticky, too soft and difficult to handle. It will just stretch too much. You cannot give it a uniform thickness. Also, just want to say something. If the dough is too wet, I have this dough here. If it's too wet, what you want to do is just uncover it and let it sit like this for 1 hour or so. The humidity will just escape from the dough, and the dough will become a little less wet and easier to handle. And it's the same with every time when you knead the dough with a stand mixer, for instance. If you feel the dough is too wet, just spread it on a table, spread it very thin, like 1 inch thin, spread it and let it sit, and maybe even flip it 30 minutes later. It's going to lose humidity and become less humid, more dry, and that's one good trick. By the way, be careful if you use these trays. Be careful with anything plastic around. It's going to stick to it and burn. So careful also with your hands. The surface all around, metal surface, is hot. So the way I'm doing this, I just stretch it by hand. I don't like to use a roll because it kind of compresses the dough. So one of the things is that if I pull it on the edges like this and keep it in the air, my fingers in the center are going to stretch the center too much. It's going to become too thin. So what I prefer to do is just put it on the side, on the beam, on the bottom of the beam, and just stretch it while keeping the weight of the dough sitting like this, so I don't stretch the center. But usually I will do it the other way. So this is the way I give it a form, a dimension of round. And notice I stretch it. I pull it and stretch it like this, right? I just kind of stretch it towards the outside, and I stretch only the border, not the center. I don't need to stretch the center because the center will stretch by itself already, and usually the center will become slightly thinner anyway, which is not a good thing. You want uniform thickness. Okay, at this point it's kind of round. You just get used to do these things. I put it in there, and then I feel like the edges are still a little bit too tall. I will crush it and push it towards the outside. It's important not to make it too thin. If it's too thin, it's going to be too dry inside. My camera is shaking. If it's too thin, it's going to be too dry inside and not pleasant to eat. And by the way, I make myself this kind of thickness because I like it not too soft inside. It's just my preference here, but you can make it to be thicker. It's not a problem. It's going to bake, not too thick, but it's going to bake. Even half an inch thickness, it's okay. Try to make it uniform. Push everything that's too bumpy towards the other side. Now what is important here is I did wrap it in flour, but still there will be always a surface that's drier, is the top surface, and a surface that's slightly more sticky. I want the drier surface to be on the plate, so I will put it with the bottom drier surface. Why? Because any kind of wetness is going to stick on the plate, and that's not good because you cannot unstick it. And by the way, it's a good idea to have one of those, I'm not sure if you call it shovels, just unsticking whatever plastic things with a handle to just detach it if it sticks. So again, the drier surface, and if it feels it sticks at the hand, put more flour because it's going to stick on this plate, so, or on the cast iron skillet. So it has not to stick on hand. That's really important. Has been 15 minutes, actually more than 15 minutes past, so the temperature is good. Right after I put it in there, I just crush a little bit more to make it uniform. Careful with your hands. I'm used to this. Sometimes you burn yourself. By the way, you can just touch like this quickly. It's not going to hurt you, not going to burn you. But if you keep your finger there, then you will remember. And let me just give you, I like to share this. Perhaps it sounds like many tips. And by the way, for the time, I'm not sure if you see it properly, for the baking time on the first side, just look at the video. Just look at the time of the video, minutes of the video. I feel it's about maybe 1 minute or so, or maybe 1.5 minutes. It's important not to see any brown. When you see brown, it's already too late. Before you see the brown appearing here, brown means it's baked in another way. Before the brown appears, you want to flip it, and you will see, because the face was dry, not sticky, I can flip it easily. Now there is one important part here. This face is not uniform, so I get anything flat and just slightly gently crush it. This makes that face uniform, flat if you want, and it bakes it uniform. Otherwise it's going to burn tips here, but the center is not going to be cooked, baked. I was saying that, let me see, sometimes it inflates, it makes bubbles. I don't like bubbles. It may look fun, but what happens if there is a bubble here, underneath this area will be burnt. So I always break the bubbles and let the air escape. I have other things, I will tell you when I remember them. Just need to rush a little bit. So just check the video time for how long it bakes, but usually it's the first side that is more important to flip it timely, not too late, not too soon either. And I'm going to flip it back again. The same goes for the cast iron skillet. I make this video also for my daughter. She asked me to show her how to make this bread, because I gave her this bread and I think she liked it. And hopefully I cannot spend too much time with her, but hopefully through this video she will get, that's why also I give so many details if you want. It's sort of an instructional video somehow. However, keep in mind, this is my very first lesson. Making bread, it's all about learning, hopefully from other persons, but mostly by yourself. So it's a learning curve, even if you see a video like this. Keep that in mind. You always need to understand why something happens, what's causing that thing to happen, the cause, the parameter I call it sometimes, and how to adjust that parameter. The parameters usually are going to be the room temperature, including the flour temperature, the table temperature, and the amount of flour and of liquid, water, milk, and everything. And keep in mind also, the flour is different from country to country. The way it's ground, it's different, which means you will need, maybe if you are in France, I'm in Canada. If you are in France, you will need to adjust. This is baked for me. It's not dark and it feels stiff. So it's baked. Yes, it burns a little bit at my fingers. I'm used to it, but I don't keep my fingers too much on it either. So the flour in France, the flour in Canada, the flour in the United States can be very different, very different. And you need to adjust the amounts, especially I would say go with just the amount of flour instead of plain flour, water at the same time. Just the amount of flour needs to be adjusted, and may need to be adjusted quite a bit. My stepmother did bake in Europe other products, not just bread, actually not bread at all, but when she came here with the same receipts, she was good at it. She said I could not get the same results no matter what, so she had to adjust the amount of flour. I think the brands of flour are going to get you mostly the same results in the same country, but from country to country it may be very different. It's just the process of grinding it, maybe the type of wet, who knows. And also look on the flour package, look at the date. The date usually here in Canada will give you expiring date 1 year after the packaging date. So the date that you see there, we are in 2026 March. If you see 2027 March, it means it has just been packaged. 2-3 months packaging, it's fine. If you see 6, 7, 8 months packaging, I would not take that flour, because keeping the flour in the packaging, it may cause a problem. I remember during COVID, I think there was sort of a production delay or anything like this. The production was affected, and I had old flour and I could not knead it. It didn't knead all of a sudden, just because it was a different quality. Okay, this is slightly too toasted or baked.
but it's fine. What I do now, I don't put it flat on the top on anything. I will just keep it upside like this. If you, so it's you see it, yes, so it cools down like this. If you put it flat on a table or on anything, it's going to get too wet underneath and is not going to be crunchy. Okay, I also need to work, not just talk. I try to remember things, so more tips if you want. But overall, I would say this is pretty much it. Let me show you my Ziploc bags. So what I do, I let it fully cool down. This is really important because I go to put it in the freezer, right inside the freezer, and store it there, and can stay inside the freezer for several weeks, up to 3 weeks, 1 month without problem. But you will see, let me show you, it did those bubbles here. This is from rising, is normal, it's a good sign. But I was saying that I keep it inside the freezer, and when I eat it, I just put it in my toaster. It could be frozen, I could let it thaw maybe a few minutes outside, but I always put it inside the toaster, and I don't toast it inside the toaster. I just warm it up, basically. I just make it crunchy again a little bit, but I don't bake it inside the toaster. It's already baked on the surface. I don't want to burn it, but I have to use toaster because, like I said, it has to stay. I have to eat it when it's warm. If it's cold, I don't like to eat it. It's just not a good taste. Also, you will see perhaps, yes, I need to think of several things. Filming and doing anything, could be a repair or anything, it's difficult. When you see videos of people showing you something, whatever it could be, always understand that it's so difficult to film and concentrate what you do and talk and remember what to say and try to remember everything. It's like a double job, if not more. Just pay respect to this if you don't mind, not just my channel but other channels. It's got just a little bit warm, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to break it only in 2 pieces. I need to make carefully this one, not to forget it. You see how easy it detaches? If it's slightly wet, it's not going to detach like this, and it's difficult. So it's perhaps 1 minute on the first side, not too much. Yes, I was saying that this one I'm going to just break it in 2 pieces, and I'm doing it now when it's not hot, when it's warm but not yet cold. When it gets too cold, when it cools down, it's harder to tear it like this. So perhaps you see the camera, it's okay. This is nice, this is a good quality. And now that it's no longer very warm, I put it on this kind of grid, a little bit distanced on the table, so this way it's going to cool down. But it's important to break it in pieces now, before I freeze it, and also before it cools down. And usually I put it inside the toaster this way, because my toaster is not wide enough. I just toast it this way, reheat it if you want, and I just, once it's warm, I just tear it in 2 pieces and put it in the toaster, those 2 pieces. So this is why it's important to flatten it so it bakes uniformly. That's really important. Okay, I need to make another one. Let me show you my Ziploc bags, and I think that should be it for this part of the video. Then hopefully I'm going to add an explanation about the cast iron skillets, how to use them. So this is Ziploc. It got lost today. It's no longer showing the Ziploc brand. So I do reuse this a lot of time. It's important to let them dry when you empty it. Let them dry to remove any moisture so it doesn't cause mold inside. And also keep them always in the freezer. Don't let them sit outside. It can build up moisture or mold. These are the best. There are two models, one with this kind of zipped button, what you call it. This is really nice, very easy to do, very easy to use. There is this other model which I don't prefer because it's difficult to close, but it's the same brand. And these are, it says on the box, for freezer. They resist inside the freezer, and I do use it many times. So I do recommend you get those bags. I'm not sure about the size. It's about, I don't know, about maybe 25 centimeters by 25 or so. Okay, so let's see now the cast iron skillet. And if I forget things, I will just put a pin, attach a top comment. Give you an idea, this is a better rise at better room temperature, so notice large bubbles. And also if you look at the side, it did rise quite a bit more. It's about double the thickness of when you see better from this side, double the thickness from when I put it in there, and this is the bottom. So this is as much as I would rise proof. Give me an idea about how big these are. Oops. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change much in taste, or just maybe it's softer. As long as you see those bubbles, it's good. It doesn't have to be too big or too small. One thing that happens when it's like this, when I put it to bake, especially when I flip it, it's going to bubble, it's going to inflate. And I puncture it always right away, because when it's inflating, underneath is going to burn that area, and I don't want to burn. So I just puncture it, just poke it with my finger to deflate it, or just tear that bubble. So this is how I did use cast iron skillet. So it's just a regular skillet, but it's upside down. This is the bottom, and it's a very nice print if you want. It's made in Canada, Quebec. It's vintage, also. So has to be cast iron skillet, not a pan, not a regular pan, because this thing, it's actually giving the heat in a very constant way. If you use just a pan, a thin pan, or even thicker pan, stainless steel, could be anything, it's going to simply burn the surface of the dough, bread, and it's not going to bake it inside. I did try and didn't work. So absolutely full cast iron skillet. Now I did use this portable stove, and notice I did left the heat, the setting that I use it. I would recommend trying around 1/3 of the scale. I don't know what's the it's 1000 watt, but I don't know what's the setting here, the temperature itself, but it's just, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, that was level 3. And the skillet may actually touch. Just lift this, is heavy. So again, it's a cast iron skillet, just for, this was for steaks or whatever, but I did use it on the other side. So it may touch the surface here, and you may need to adjust the temperature. And again, you need to let the temperature set for at least minimum 20 minutes before you place the dough.
So I said some skillets depends how they sit on the round, or you may also use your stove if you have this kind of heating element. I don't recommend stoves that have ceramic surface, because first you can crack the surface and it's expensive to replace the ceramics, and also you may scratch it. Other than that, you can try, but you really need to be careful because the skillet is very heavy. And yes, I was saying some skillets will touch the heating element, other will sit slightly above. Both it's fine, but you need to adjust the temperature accordingly, right? So if it touches, obviously it's going to need a lower temperature setting because it heats up faster. And yes, so this is a 1000 watt, was plenty enough, of course. And the skillet, if you use something like this, you need to have the skillet to rest on the edges here, right? Because if it rests, oh yes, one thing, if the skillet rests directly on the heating element, if you want to press down on the dough, then it's going to kind of be wobbly. So just careful with this. But other than that, this is what I did use for, I would say, more than 2 years.